Yep. Welcome everybody to the next episode of Chiefs versus Vikings. We are here with Brittany and Caleb on a glorious Sunday afternoon. The Chiefs just beat the Seahawks. How are you doing, Caleb?
Doing pretty good. It was a lot to talk about in this game. You want to get
Sure,
into
man.
it?
It was a great game. I was very happy to see that there. I heard it was very cold. Before we get at Brittany, let's get through the injuries. Great win, but what's it looking like? Are the Chiefs healthy? Are they hurt? I mean, we see down the line sometimes injuries happen. What have you heard from your research so far?
So Andy Reid in his post-game conference said there's no significant injuries
Mm-hmm.
to report. So, it with a cold game, we did see some guys walk off the sideline. It wouldn't surprise me if they just got, a little stinger.
Mm-hmm.
But Andy Reid said there's no new significant injuries to report, so that's always good to hear.
Okay.
Um, Kansas City continues to be, one of the healthier teams in the league, just in terms of not losing anybody significant, knock on wood and everything like that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's good news coming out of this game. We saw the Seahawks. There were some guys that left the field early.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City did not have that on their side of the field, so
Mm-hmm.
we're good in that regard.
Okay, that's great. I know it's kind of funny to see these Seahawks players come out and no shirt on. I was like, I don't know what that accomplishes, but that's what they want to do. But hey, the Chiefs came out, won the game. But I just looked, I thought that was very, very odd. But regardless, it is what it is. So
Yeah, you don't get bonus points for getting hypothermia before the game.
when I saw that, my first thought was whenever Orlando Brown and them did that thing back in 2017, 16, 17. I was like, this could be interesting. Just another reason why Kansas City is a great place to be, especially for football. So I'm happy with the win there.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I want to talk about. First thing is I want to talk about this defense first
Okay.
because I think that was sort of the talking point of coming out of this game is just how well the defense played. They haven't played up to their top play in the last couple of weeks, giving up a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of points to the Broncos and the Texans, a couple of the worst defenses in the league. And I know the Seahawks were coming in injured,
Mm-hmm.
but they still have DK Metcalf. They still have they're still facing Geno Smith, who
Mm-hmm.
has been one of the better quarterbacks in the league. So
Exactly.
this defense came out and played. They only gave up 10 points. The touchdown on that was sort of a garbage time touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
The field goal that they got was in the red zone. This is
Mm-hmm.
something that I had been sort of complaining about over the last month of football was just
Mm-hmm.
how bad this red zone defense was. So for them to get the stop on the 3 yard line right before halftime, um, that was a great thing to see because
Mm-hmm.
that's something that, you need to be able to produce stops in the red zone coming into the playoffs. So hats off to the defense. We'll get into some specifics here in terms of individual players, but
Mm-hmm.
just, what are your overall thoughts on the defense?
I was very pleased with the defense. I mean, every year, if you look at the defense, Veach has drafted a defensive player that if you do a redraft for that previous year's draft, they're a top 10 player. Willie Gay, Nick Bolton, Jerry Sneed, McDuffie. I mean, the list is going to go on and on and on. Because of that, the Chiefs are in a very, very, very great position. And the defense played very, very well. I was very pleased to see them tackling. I don't think there was a broken tackle. There may have been a couple, but for the most part, whenever the Chiefs got tackled a guy, another person was there to help support. And because of that, the Seahawks struggled. I mean, DK Metcalf, he got his points. Like I said in the last podcast, it's going to happen. But Snead did a great job locking him down. I mean, just as a whole, as a defensive unit, when it looked tough, they still came up. They got an interception. They had about probably 3 or 4 sacks. 7 or 8 plays went for negative yards. Just the Chiefs guys has got in the backfield. So I have to say, as a whole, this team, they can only get better even more. But I think that defensive performance was just phenomenal. And I think that they can reach another level, especially in the playoffs against some of these teams like the Bills, Bengals, Dolphins, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think one of the guys that we need to give a shout out to on the defensive side has got to be Nick Bolton.
Mm-hmm.
He had 17 tackles on the day.
17.
And
Wow.
17 tackles.
Wow.
8 of them were solo tackles. So, you were just talking about guys making plays. Nick Bolton seemed to be there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because he was 17 tackles. The next closest guy was Willie Gay with 9.
Mm-hmm.
So this linebacker core really was stepping up today.
Exactly.
Some other guys that, obviously Thornhill had the interception, almost had 2 on the day. If it weren't for that defensive penalty, he might have ended up with 2. Chris
Mm-hmm.
Jones continues to be a productive player. on this team.
Mm-hmm.
While he only ended up with the one sack, he hit the quarterback 4 different times, 2 tackles for loss. Also got a couple of solo tackles. So,
Mm-hmm.
Chris Jones stepped up today. There were guys all over the field constantly getting pressure on the quarterback. The corners in general, between Snead and Watson, all of them just seem to come up and make open field tackles. I feel like when the run game
Mm-hmm.
was working for Seattle, it
Mm-hmm.
was in between the gaps. It was not because they were bouncing outside, because anytime they did, corners were making plays.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a game where we can truly say that all 3 levels of the ball were working and we're all
Mm-hmm.
making plays for the Chiefs.
I agree with you 100%. And kind of when we look at the all three phases, I mean, special teams, they have their mishaps. Townsend, I know people are going after him from his punts, but as Sanchez and were saying on the broadcast, that football's a rock. And when he was kicking that, I mean, he was doing the best he could do. I would say a lot of his punts did really, really well. Bucker field goals, perfect, everything there. Coverage, I mean, you could say the only bad thing would be that fumble that happened on the punt, but they concurred real quick. But also the penalty would have probably pushed that away as well. And also the 48-yard return by the Seahawks. Other than that, the special teams had a pretty good day. I just get frustrated when fans are like all the time are saying one bad quarter or one bad play, and they're like, the Chiefs are terrible. I'm like, this is a 4-quarter game. They're gonna be fine. They'll figure it out. It just was very odd to me. But regardless, hey, they did their thing, and I'm happy.
Yeah, I think that, with Butker making another long field goal today, I believe it was a 42-yard field goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with him being able to step up and make that, it was a 47-yard field goal.
Ooh, okay.
For him to be able to step up and make that, I think that sort of quiets some of the fan base and
Mm-hmm.
some of the talking points. I wrote an article earlier this week talking about how Butker, up to this point with kicks under 50 yards was
Mm-hmm.
averaging 86%, which is the current NFL average of
Mm-hmm.
making those kicks successful. So,
Mm-hmm.
before today, he was um, 13 of 15. So
Okay.
now he's 14 for 16. So,
Mm-hmm.
the fan base that if you're worried about that, that don't be extremely worried about Butker.
Yeah.
I do feel
Mm-hmm.
like not only do the numbers back it up, but if you can make it in this sort of weather, you're going to be able to make it no matter what happens in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, for sure.
um, I was really hoping that Butker would get more chances to kick field goals today,
Mm-hmm.
just because, you got to the lead early. You got to the quick lead,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, you were up 17-3 at halftime, so I was hoping that Butker would be able to basically just get extra practice in this
Mm-hmm.
game and not have to have some low pressure situations.
That's
But,
true.
he only got the one field goal. He did get 3 extra points done. So in terms of special teams, I'm pretty happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
And Butker and Tommy seem to work well today.
No, I agree. I think the combination between Bucker, Tommy, and then also long snapper Winchester, they figured out. I guarantee you that was something that was really hammered in the special teams meeting this weekend, especially between the three of them. Because this year they've had a lot of special teams mishaps, and I mean we saw Colquitt with Sane Townsend and things all that nature. But to see them figure it out and come out there and be able to play, it was great to see they able to figure that out because you need those points, especially when it comes to a game like this. I mean, not saying that the Seahawks are terrible, but if they would have had a couple more good plays, they probably could have. This game could be a little different story. But we see as a whole, all three phases of the game were perfectly executed. And to see Mahomes after the offense stalled out, back-to-back plays to Kelsey, then he runs that touchdown, rushes for that touchdown, holds his hand on the ground and hits the pylon. I mean, hey, MV Pat. That's all I got to say there. MV Pat.
100%. I mean, how crazy of a play was that? I mean, that's a play that if another quarterback does it, that's on their highlight reel for the rest of their career. And that's
Mm-hmm.
probably a run that gets shoved in the back because we had Air Mahomes last week. So,
Yep.
I mean, he's so crazy, and his ability to make plays.
Mm-hmm.
Making uh making chicken salad out of chicken, what.
That's fair.
So his ability to just make stuff happen to
Mm-hmm.
barely, I mean, I don't think you could touch the pylon any less with the ball than he did right there.
And he's smart. He knows as long as you hit the pylon, you're good to touchdown. I'm like, okay, perfect. And that's what he did. And
Yeah,
that's what we
so
need. So
I mean, just to be able to just get the play done. It doesn't matter how you do it. It doesn't matter what it looks like to be able to get the score, get it done, and move
mm-hmm.
forward for the next play. Just fantastic by by Patrick Mahomes. I know he didn't have a blow the doors off kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
224 yards, 16 of 28 for two touchdowns and the rushing touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to blow the doors off anybody. It's not going to be eye popping, but it was a great way to just win this game.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said earlier, the offense sputtered out in the third quarter, but defense stepped up and they were able to score another touchdown late in the fourth quarter to really
Mm-hmm.
push this game out of reach and to keep this game from turning into, raising some blood pressure. People
Oh
here in
yeah.
Kansas City.
Well,
Uh, it it was just an overall team win, and I don't think we've seen one of these games since probably against San Francisco.
yeah, I agree with you. For the most part, it was pretty calm, collective, and they were able to figure it out. And I'm happy because the Chiefs, I mean, yeah, there have been some issues, but they've been able to figure things out and been able to battle. So I'm very happy and pleased to see what they've been able to do, especially during this game. They did not give up one at once.
Yeah, and in terms of the receiving game, the only guy that, really had a great game was
Mhm.
Travis Kelce with 6 receptions, 113 yards,
Oh
and that
wow.
long 52-yard touchdown or that long 52-yard
Hmm.
reception.
Okay.
They talked on the broadcast, fastest tight end to 800 career receptions,
Hmm.
another 100-yard game. So he continues his way to get that gold jacket when he retires. I do think that here's just a side note. When we're talking about statistics and players, breaking records and stuff. I do think that making it out to number of games played instead of
Hmm.
seasons, I definitely think is the way to go. And I hope that that sort of
Mm.
catches on because now you're adding another game and having those how many games you've played instead of how many seasons you played, I think is the way
Hmm.
to go for some of these records.
That's a good point. I haven't thought of it that way. It makes sense though. Makes sense. So.
The run game, wasn't there in terms of the yardage, but
Hmm.
Pacheco, 14 carries for 58 yards, and Patrick Mahomes had his couple of runs, including that
Hmm.
touchdown run. So, they didn't run the ball for a lot of yards, but I feel like when they needed to get the rushing yards, they pretty much got it, and they really kept the Seahawks defense honest. Because
Hmm.
last week they had shown the ability to run, and I hope
Hmm.
that, I'll give you got to give Andy Reid credit,
Oh, you got
right?
to.
He he has shown previously that, pass, 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 but he stuck to the run game today. And I think that even on trying to put the game on ice,
Hmm.
you're trying to run the ball, and he did that. Even though it didn't work, I'm still happy that they ran the ball there. So,
Hmm.
I think this was overall just a good game for the entire team.
Mm. Yeah, and I agree. I think when you look at Pacheco, McKinnon, that's a 1-2 combo. A lot of teams are not going to want to deal with. And because of that, I think that's really going to help us now. And even throwing a third guy like a Rojo in to see what they could do. Because of what the Chiefs have in the run game, I think we're going to be okay, especially when it comes to the playoffs when we need to run opposed to last year. Now, I don't know if they're going to bring Clyde back. Maybe that's an option. Maybe that's not. But I feel like his spot has unfortunately kind of gone because you got McKinnon that can run the ball and also be a great pass catcher at the backfield. So I just feel like our offense for the most part is pretty much set.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you want to mess with the 1-2 punch that you have right now.
Exactly.
You sort of every week they talked about we're going to give the ball to the hot hand. We're going to give the
Mm-hmm.
ball to the hot hand. So, if Clyde ends up coming off of IR, I don't know where his role falls into this offense unless he gets the Ronald Jones role where he literally gets the ball once a game because Ronald
Mm-hmm.
Jones got one rush for 4 yards and that was it.
And I would say
So,
Ronald Jones is the better running back because he's going forward and pick up almost 5 yards on his first carry, 4 yards. So I don't know. That's how I felt, but we'll see. Maybe he can bring him in certain situations. So
yeah, I'm just not sure what role he has coming back on this team.
hmm yeah, we'll have to see. Something will happen for sure there. Is there
Uh,
a
I,
good?
I'm trying to just think about, there was some mistakes that were made on
Hmm.
this during this game. I think Justin Watson comes to mind. He had
Hmm.
4 targets. He dropped the ball at least 3 times. I think that fourth one was it got dirted in front of him, if I
Yeah, it
remember
did.
correctly. But
Hmm.
he had at least 3 drops. You can't have that. You gotta be better.
Hmm.
Especially, I know it's cold outside, and I know that ball would be harder to catch, but you gotta end up with some of those balls. That
Hmm.
he had a couple of them that were on key downs, so
Yep.
you got to come up with those. 4 drops is a lot for one game, so you got to be better than that.
Hmm. MVS almost had a catch down. I know, sorry, catch. He's almost got his feet down, but one went out of bounds. Juju caught a phenomenal ball from Mahomes. I remember specifically because he like launched that, and Juju caught it pretty quickly. Also, Mahomes had that beautiful pass to Kelsey, lofted pass for that touchdown for McKinnon. So I mean, there's a lot of positives. Look at Trey Smith and basically destroyed another person. Another surprise in the pancake block. So I mean, there's a lot there. This awesome offense is rolling.
Yeah, it really is, and I feel like towards the end of the second half, they really didn't do anything special. I feel like they were kind of going back to that vanilla offense. You're up
Mm-hmm.
17-3. Why am I going to put anything on tape that gives anything away for next week? So I think
Mm-hmm.
that could explain some of the sputtering too. It's just like you're
Mm-hmm.
up 17-3. This team has shown no ability to move the ball and score on our defense.
Mm-hmm.
So why am I going to show anything exotic on tape that
That's
I want
fair.
to use later on? So I think that can also explain some of it too. Um, Chiefs run defense, wasn't great today. They had their Kenneth Walker, the third, 26 carries,
Uh-huh.
107 yards. So he sort of ran on the Chiefs today, um, which is, and what's weird is he ran towards the strength of the defense. He did have
Mm-hmm.
that 120-yard run, but, breaking the 100-yard mark, I was not expecting that. The Seahawks have struggled to run the ball over the
Mm-hmm.
past few weeks. It's part of the reason why they've been losing so much is their lack
Mm-hmm.
of ability to run the ball. So I don't know if the
Okay.
Chiefs during the week just took them a little easy on the run game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what happened there, but
I mean, there were
they
some moments where it did really good and then it did really bad, but I think they had a good balance of figuring things out.
yeah, I mean, but in the end, when you're up by that much,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to try and play a little prevent and just not
Mm-hmm.
let them score, and that's what they
Yeah.
did. We brought up a little earlier, DK Metcalf, 7 receptions, 81 yards. Was not able to find the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that he was going to have a 100-yard game. That was in my believe it or nots.
Mm-hmm.
Was DK Metcalf going to go over 100 just because Kansas City has struggled with larger number one wide receivers this year? And you brought up something about Snead. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to talk about that?
Yeah, Snead, I was reading in the post game stuff that Snead was following DK. I mean, it was pretty evident, but that's what something Andy Reid and them were wanting him to do this week. And it's pretty phenomenal to see him do that because for the most part, he pretty much shut DK down. Now, did DK get his catches and yards? Yeah, he did. This is DK. But he didn't allow any touchdowns. And there's only one big play that DK had towards the end of the half. So to see all those combination of things happening, I'm wondering if they're going to try to start doing that, especially when it comes towards when they get in the playoff mode, trying to shut down these teams' best receiver. But from what I saw, hey, that's another tool in your tool belt that's really, really good to have.
Yeah, to be able to have your slot corner to go one-on-one with one of the better wide receivers in the NFL and DK
Mm-hmm.
Metcalf, one of the more physical wide receivers and DK Metcalf really shows that this team is deep at the corner position.
Mm-hmm.
We've been given a lot of credit and rightfully so to McDuffie and how well he's been able to
Mm-hmm.
play. And I think Snead has sort of taken a back seat in the minds of Chiefs fans
Mm-hmm.
in terms of being a coverage corner. So to come out, have the confidence in your coaching staff, have the confidence in yourself, and be able to actually go out and perform against a wide receiver like him and prove the
Mm-hmm.
narrative wrong, at least my narrative, that, a larger wide receiver is going to come out and perform and get his numbers on the day,
Mm-hmm.
is good to see for them moving forward
Mm-hmm.
because no matter who you end up facing in the playoffs, they're going to have a top wide receiver. That's just how
Mm-hmm.
the NFL is built.
Yeah.
And have that confidence going in that Kansas City has at least two corners that can match up on a better wide receiver, and McDuffie and Snead is a great thing going into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. You need those guys, especially. I mean, we see Snead. If you and I repeat this again, if you do a redraft from where he was drafted, he's a top 10 pick because Snead is just that phenomenal. Can play. He's a great blitzer. He's a great guy on the boundary. I mean, slot corner. I mean, he can do it all. And you need people like that to help, especially when you're going against some of these difficult teams with these bigger receivers. You need guys like Snead, a more physical corner to help you.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that Snead got in a little trouble with the illegal hands to the face call
Mm-hmm.
on the line of scrimmage. But you know what
Mm-hmm.
I love to see though? I love to see him actually attacking a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
To be so physical on the line, that's the only place you're allowed to put your hands on a receiver and not get
Mm-hmm.
a call. You got to hit him in the chest plate. So he went a little high there, but I do love the fact that we saw them get physical with these wide receivers. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's why they were so effective at stopping them is because they were knocking them off their timing routes. They were
Mm-hmm.
not allowing them to get early separation, and by doing that, you're you're able to prevent them from getting some of those easy catches that they've been able to have early in the year. And it
Yeah.
simply is just about let me knock you off your route. So if it is a 5 step and I'm going to throw the ball to you, well, you're
Mm-hmm.
behind your 5 steps. You're at
Mm-hmm.
four, 3.5 steps. So I think that was definitely something why the corners were so successful today.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the ability to get your hands on the guys before the 5 yards.
And you have to, because if you don't, you're in a position where it's going to cause you to struggle. You have to make sure you can do all those things. You are completely right, Quentin.
In terms of the corners too, corners are making a lot of open field tackles today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've talked about it. The spaces in this are kind of running together. But the fact that Kansas City was able to depend on their corners to make open field tackles is such a huge thing. We see a lot of
Mm-hmm.
teams, corners are not known for their ability to make tackles, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times where corners are simply pass defenders and they'll get
Mm-hmm.
trucked over by running backs and big wide receivers. That didn't happen today. Kansas City was able to stop a lot of their those running backs. So there's a lot of times that the running back tried to bounce outside and the corner was
Mm-hmm.
sitting there. So that's a huge thing. And it's a lot of the reasons why Kansas City was successful in defense today because they were not giving up easy yards. It
Mm-hmm.
really
Yep.
was. It really is. They were stuck in a lot of third and longs today, and I feel like Kansas City was successful on those third and longs. It's when you get to those situations, you have to take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you need to. I mean, when you get a team to all these thirds and longs, that's wins for the defense. Number one, because the team's percentage convert goes down significantly, and there really weren't all these little short plays that the Seahawks were able to get. Now, towards the end, they had some runs and different things, but for the most part, the Chiefs defense kept them in check. I mean, Willie Gay was out there balling. Nick Bolton was doing really well. Karlaftis got a sack. Chris Jones had a excellent tackle for all. I mean, they were just everywhere. As soon as one tackler got to a guy, the swarmer red just went in those areas. So because of that, that's why the Seahawks really struggled. They were just not really prepared. I feel like they were playing 13 on 11 out there sometimes.
Yeah, I mean they were 2 and 14 on third down.
Whew.
So they were not able to move the ball on third down when they got in those third down, and I feel like there was like 4 drives in a row where they ended up punting because they were in
Yep.
third and 11, third and 10, third and 12
Mm-hmm.
because the Chiefs were getting tackles for loss. They had 9 tackles for loss today, and that was coming
Mm-hmm.
from everybody. Chris
Mm.
Jones had a couple. Nick Bolton had a couple. I mean, everybody on the defensive line and just in the defense in general was able to get guys behind the line of scrimmage, put a
Mm-hmm.
team that's been struggling on offense in bad situations, and they were able to capitalize on it. And,
Exactly.
that's how you're going to win football games.
Yeah, and you're not wrong there. And when you look at the end of the day, what that does for this team, it's really going to help their confidence moving forward. They can knock out a team like the Bills or the Dolphins or these other teams. I think if they end up, depending on what looks like is going to happen, if they can somehow get that number one seed back, even if they don't, they're the two seed that play the opening week, it's going to be fine. There's a lot of stuff they can do. So I'm very confident to see what they can do moving forward.
Yeah, I do think that getting that number one seed is important for 2 reasons. One,
Mm-hmm.
I know that the Chiefs haven't sustained any significant injuries, but
Mm-hmm.
guys are still beat up.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes had his hand wrapped up for all of last week's practice. So,
Mm-hmm.
even though guys don't end up on the injury report, there's still things that are nagging them. And to give a
Mm-hmm.
guy just 1 week to be able to, let his body heal a little bit
Mm-hmm.
is pretty significant.
That's
And
true.
then the other thing is if you have the number one seed, you only have to win 2 playoff games instead of 3.
Exactly.
And with the AFC being so stacked this year, some of the
Mm-hmm.
teams that are in the wild card spots are so much better than last year. I mean, last year Kansas
Oh.
City got to face the Pittsburgh Steelers,
Mm-hmm.
and they blew their doors off
Mm-hmm.
they blew the doors off them. So to be able to be able to not have to face anybody this year because there's no Pittsburgh Steelers guys that are making the playoffs this year.
Mm-hmm.
That we talked about this all year during the offseason that the AFC is stacked with talent.
Oh, for
And
sure.
the currently the Chargers, Dolphins, and Titans or Jaguars are going to be in the playoffs right now.
Mm.
There's no easy teams to face in the playoffs per se,
Mm-hmm.
but this is so you don't want to if you don't have to face anybody, try not to. And that comes with
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City winning out and Buffalo dropping the game against the Bengals.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's very possible because they're going to be playing against, I think, if I'm right, the Bills are going to play the Patriots. They're going to play the Bengals next week, and they're going to play the Patriots in the last game of the season. So there is still opportunities. The Chiefs are going to be playing the Broncos and then the Raiders. There's still a good chance. No, is it the Raiders? The Raiders
Yeah,
are
yeah.
up? Yeah,
We go
Broncos
to
and Raiders.
Vegas.
So there's a good chance for the Chiefs to wrap this up. They just got to continue to keep playing their game, pay attention to the meetings, and just come out there and play all four quarters, and they'll be fine.
And the Bills, I don't know if the Bills are better than the Bengals right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I can definitely tell you that Kansas City's better than the Broncos and the Raiders. I don't
Oh, for
think that's a
sure.
hot take at the moment,
Oh,
but
it's not.
um, do you want to go to our players of the game?
Sure, we can go into that.
Okay, who do you got for your offensive player of the day?
My offensive player of the game, I'm going to give it to Mahomes. The only reason why, and you said we stole mine. Well, he stepped up today in a major way. I mean, touchdown drives, even when it got difficult, especially on that last drive, he found Kelsey back to back, huge plays. Then on that third and goal, he was able to roll out, then eventually run and get. He had the awareness to where he needed to go to put the football to get that touchdown. I mean, just to see what he did. I mean, yeah, he had 24 yards, two passing touchdowns, one rushing touchdown. Wasn't the quote unquote best Mahomes game, but he did enough to win, and that's what you need. That's what you need as a leader.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty easy to give this one to Mahomes just because one, not nobody else on offense really had a fantastic day, and you walk away with three touchdowns again. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would agree that I think it is Mahomes, but just to be different, I am going to give mine to Travis Kelce.
That's fair.
Guy he took over a drive with two back-to-back receptions that went
Mm-hmm.
basically the whole field. So, six receptions, 113 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Um, had a couple drops early in the game, but came back and helped get on a touchdown scoring drive. So I'm gonna give mine to Travis Kelce, but just to be different. But yeah, Mahomes, had that touchdown, two passing touchdowns and that rushing touchdown.
Mm-hmm. And
Uh, go ahead.
no, so, and you need that. You need those players, those franchise guys to step. And once they do that, it just makes it so much easier for your offense to continue to move the ball.
Yeah, when you have a $500 million quarterback, your half a
Mm-hmm.
billion dollar quarterback's going to make plays like that, right? Otherwise,
Exactly.
why are you paying him that much money? But
Preach
Mahomes
it.
again proved why he's getting that contract, why he's worth that, why he's the MVP, and why he's the best player in the NFL.
Exactly. Exactly.
Who do you have for defensive player of the day?
Defensive player of the game day. I'm going to give it to.
Yeah, this one's
I'm.
not as easy.
It's not as easy. I'm going to give mine to Willie Gay. The reason why, just the energy on the game. I mean, he was everywhere. He had a couple bad passes line of scrimmage. I mean, just to see what he was able to do for the most part, just hitting the gaps, getting tackles consistently. Now he didn't get as many as Nick Bolton. I'm gonna say that for him for you if you go that route, but just kind of see what he's able to do. Willie Gay is just a phenomenal athletic linebacker that the Chiefs need. Great in coverage, great against the run. That's the type of player you need on your team.
Yeah, and on top of that, he had two deflected passes on the line of scrimmage
Exactly.
today too. So,
Exactly.
it's one of the more underrated stats that defensive linemen and
Mm-hmm.
linebackers can have. It's not talked about as much as a pass breakup, but it's essentially the same thing. In fact, those lead to, I feel like those are more likely to lead to interceptions because you pop the
Mm-hmm.
ball up and it's a frenzy out there.
Exactly.
Um, so I think Willie Gay continues to show why he should be on the field, because he is so athletic. And today, those two pass deflections, one of them almost ended
Mm-hmm.
up in an interception. That
Yep.
was the one that just went straight up in the air
Mm-hmm.
and right in between both the offense and defensive line.
Exactly. Exactly.
Man, I don't know who I should give this
You
to.
don't
There's a
know
lot of
who?
I really don't. I
Okay.
think it's I'm between a couple players. Thornhill had the interception.
Mm-hmm.
Karloftis had another sack today, and he was really effective. Chris Jones had the game-sealing sack and a couple of four quarterback hits.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Bolton had his 17 tackles, eight of them by himself. It's just,
Don't
Sweet.
forget
We talked
Sneed.
about Sneed. Yeah, Sneed
Mm-hmm.
being able to line. So, I mean, guys all across the defense made plays, and we're just able to lock down their thing. I don't think everybody played the position they needed to play. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
stepped up, played their role. I don't think anybody was trying to do too much. Everybody came and was ready to play this game. It really was
Mm-hmm.
a full defensive stand by
Mm-hmm.
everybody on that team.
You just
Um,
do you just want to give it to the entire defense?
I mean, really though, I mean,
You might
everybody
as
stepped
well.
up. Um, I think I'm gonna give it to Bolton just because
Okay.
17 tackles is
17.
insane.
It
17
is.
tackles is so much. Saw him all over the field. His ability to come in and just tackle the tight end, get into the backfield, force the linebacker or force the running back to bounce back outside. And we
Mm-hmm.
know that our corner stepped up and made a bunch of plays. So 17 tackles is just crazy amount. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
give it to him, but I don't feel great about it because there really are just a bunch of guys that could have ended up with
Oh, for sure.
our defensive player of the game. This might
Mm-hmm.
be, at least in recent memory, this might be the most universal defensive stand that the Kansas City has had this year.
Mm-hmm. And I would agree. It's probably one of the best we've seen. And because of this defense, I think has took a whole nother step forward from what they had previously. And this is what you need. You need your defense to play like this to have their confidence going because you're going to be playing against the Broncos. So remember, the Broncos aren't the best. We need the same defensive performance we saw this time, same next week, and also against the Raiders. I mean, the defense can only go up from here, and they need this confidence because they're going to be running to some difficult teams. Are going to want to beat the Chiefs. I mean, it's pretty obvious. So they need that confidence to help them as much as they can.
Yeah, I think, both the Raiders and the Broncos are going to want to play spoiler. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's just what they're going to want to do. And we know what happens against the Raiders. They played us tight in our
Mm-hmm.
first matchup, and we saw what the Broncos do. The Broncos have a hell of a defense. It's one of the best defenses in the league, despite what we did last time, and scoring the most points they've given up all season.
Mm-hmm.
And, we need to make sure that you don't make the mistakes. That was one thing that might go under the radar in this game is that the
Mm-hmm.
team didn't have any turnovers. That was a
Yeah.
problem. We were on 9 games, nine
Whew.
back-to-back games of turning the ball over,
That is true.
and you break that streak today, and hopefully you can build off that. On the other
Mm-hmm.
hand, this was the first game in a while that you have a positive turnover differential,
Mm-hmm.
and turnovers tend to come in bunches. So if
Mm-hmm.
it's going to happen and you want those things to start to pick up, now would be a great time to do it. We've talked about this off camera and probably on other shows that, on that Super Bowl run, what did Kansas City do? Their defense stepped up. We
Yes.
got playoff version of Frank Clark. We were getting in 2018 when we made the first AFC Championship game,
Mm-hmm.
the defense was playing bad, but they were leading the league in turnovers. So
Mm-hmm.
this is what happens when you want to get to the playoffs and your defense has got to step up and start making plays. We shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
worried about the offense because we have Travis Kelce and Juju and Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be what is the defense doing? And
Exactly.
and that's what we have to look for. And to have a game like this really sets a standard of this is what this defense is capable of. Let's see what it can do going on from here.
Mm-hmm. And exactly that, and that's what you need because if you can have all things figured out and the defense can figure out what they're going to do, hey, it's going to help. Like we had in that run, Frank Clark stepped up. A lot of players did really, really well. I remember Mike Pennell. He stepped up tremendously. That could be some of what we could see now with maybe Shelton. I mean, they all the players like they just played extremely well and did what they could do, and that helped the Chiefs in every single game all the way to the Super Bowl and reason why the Chiefs won. So it's great to see all that happen.
Yeah, one of the best things to see is that Kansas City had a red zone stop today, and they
Yes.
had been they're the worst defense in the red zone up to this point, which is surprising because they started off so hot of stopping
Mm-hmm.
teams in the red zone, but they had just been so bad in the red zone. Over the last 2 weeks, they've allowed 7 red zone touchdowns, but
Mm-hmm.
between the Texans and the Broncos.
Mm.
So for to have your red zone stop end in a field goal is huge, and hopefully this is something you can build off of. I think that this is the first positive light we've had for the defense here in a few weeks, and
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that this is something that they can look back on. They look at the film and they get pumped for the ability to produce like this in the playoffs. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you get any sort of production like this and moving against some of the teams that you're going to face in January and February, this is a good sign for the team, and it's going to lead to only success.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I agree with you there. And because of that, they're in a different spot than what I would say they were last year. The defense is a whole lot better than what they were.
Yeah, I think the potential's there. Every
Mm-hmm.
week we've sort of talked about this player, has had a good game, or this player's had a good game on the defense, but it just never felt like the entire defense was having a good game. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's only a couple of games that you can truly say that it was a team effort. For the
Mm-hmm.
49ers, Buccaneers, those two games come to mind, and those were some of the best wins of the year, but they haven't been able to streak these sort of games together where it felt like through this whole year it was one side of the ball sort of bailing out the other side of the ball. And generally, it was the offense bailing out the defense. And, if you can just start to put together a couple of these games where you don't have to worry about one side bailing out the other,
Mm-hmm.
then you can really go on a playoff push here.
I agree. And if they can get, I think this is the year they can do some damage. I think this is more of a complete team and everything that they've had so far. It's gonna be fun to watch them in the playoffs.
Yeah, especially if you can keep the pressure numbers up on quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest complaints we had last year was the lack of sacks. Well, they're producing in that category,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately for the last couple weeks, that's the only thing they've been doing is been able to get
Mm.
sacks. So
That is
to be
fair.
able to put together this game and move forward, I think is huge.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree with you 100% there.
I will go over our believe it or nots, and
Perfect.
then if you have any final thoughts, I'm sure that I don't think any of us, actually, I know none of us had this game going this way.
Oh,
So I'm sure that much like every week, they're going to be completely wrong.
mm-hmm.
But
That's okay.
um, so you are right in terms of DK Metcalf. I had
Mm-hmm.
him going for over 100 yards. You had him taking the under, and he did. So
Mm-hmm.
golf
How
clap
many,
for
how many,
Caleb.
how many yards did he get?
81.
Okay, didn't I say he was anywhere between like 70 and 90?
I'm not
Maybe.
sure. I
I
just
thought
know
I said
that,
something like that.
yeah.
81, that's not bad.
Um, Darius Toney was not super involved in the offense today. He had that one catch for the 8-yard touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also involved in the punt game, but
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of sort of surprised that he wasn't out there as long as he was. I thought he was going to get more involved in the offense,
Mm-hmm.
so he didn't reach 50 yards based on that.
Mm-hmm.
That was sort of the what do you think he's going to do? Looking back at it, it makes sense because why push it? You
Mm-hmm.
sort of like last week, you got him in early and you got him involved in the punt game.
Mm-hmm.
No need to rush him back or put a bunch on his plate. So, it kind of makes sense, hindsight looking back on it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, our other one was Pacheco. He
Mm-hmm.
was on this streak of getting 80 yards from scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, he got I don't think he continues that streak actually.
Oh
So we were
wow.
right there. Yeah, he had 32 yards passing, 58 rushing. So
Okay.
we were right there that he does continue his 80-yard from scrimmage streak. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 90 yards, barely
That's
made it,
not
but
bad. That's pretty good
barely
though.
works. So he
Mm-hmm.
continues that streak again, and they didn't turn the ball over. So those are all of the things that we talked about. So we were about 50-50 on those. Um, I mean, it's just a good win. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
really what it is. Team win and, moving on to Denver.
Exactly. And I think that's gonna be another good game to see kind of what can the Chiefs do. And I think as a whole, this team has a lot of potential, can do a lot of different things. And I can't wait to see how they're gonna play moving forward because a lot can happen. But I like to kind of see some of these younger guys maybe get some reps, see what maybe a Danny Shelton can do, different things like that, because some of these guys may get their number called in the playoffs when you really, really need them the most.
Yeah. I think that's all my thoughts on the
Mm.
on the team. Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think pretty much covered everything.
Okay. Well, if you think we missed something or anything like that, make sure that you leave a comment if you or anything like that. And I think that's going to be it for us. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to everybody. We will see you in the new year.
Yep, and we appreciate everyone coming on and listening to our podcast. Quentin, thank you for coming on again. We really do appreciate it. You guys have a great, great Christmas. Enjoy the rest of your time with your families. Have a great day, guys.